Now, there have been reports coming out of Durban of some petrol stations running out of fuel after the floods in KZN. The already heavy-hit fuel retail industry says this disaster couldn't have come at a worse time as the sector continues to battle the long-term financial fallout of COVID-19 lockdowns. PetroConnect Director Harper joins us to discuss just this. Mark, thank you very much for your time this morning. Now, the floods have affected several industries, among them being the fuel retail. What has been the impact, though, of the floods on the operations across the supply chain?
Yeah, good morning. I think the KZN floods have just, as you said earlier, it's just come at the worst time possible. We seem to have found some stability in the network at the moment, but I think where the issues kind of were lying is that we couldn't get fuel to the service stations. So, the depots had fuel. Yes, they were flooded and in many cases weren't safe to take trucks out of. But the Bayhead Road, being the main road out of the depots for the oil companies, couldn't get fuel out, which obviously means that you're going to have problems with the service stations going dry because the tankers cannot get to the service stations. So without having fuel being delivered to the service stations, clearly we've got a big problem on our hands with many roads even leading to those service stations other than Bayhead are still problematic. So unfortunately that is still landing with many of the sites standing dry because those tankers cannot get to those sites still.
Now, Mark, speaking of Bayhead Road, the outbound carriage, it seems there was some commitment made that yesterday they would have finalized issues around that road and it would be utilized. What happened? Did they meet the deadline or it's still not operational?
So Bayhead is still not operational. They are still working on that road. They've been able to utilize another road in the nearby vicinity. They needed to get permission to use that road first because it is through more of a residential area. So they had to get that permission to be able to get the trucks out. But Bayhead, we hope, is going to be fully operational soon. There is some vehicles that are leaving through Bayhead at the moment, but it's certainly not at the full capacity that it should be at.
We understand that it's around 60%. They revised it upwards. It was 20% and then it went to 60%. So is that at least perhaps...
Yeah, unfortunately, they're not going to be at 60% now within these next couple of days. I think they'll keep revising it as they move along. But certainly at the moment, no, they're not at the 60% level.
But interestingly, on Friday, the South African Petroleum Industry Association allayed fears, stating that there was no immediate risk to fuel availability. So you're clearly saying, no, there is a risk. There's no way they're revising it to 60% of normal daily supply, at the very least.
Yeah, so the supply is able to get out, so there is supply. So I think we've got the fuel. The problem has been actually getting the fuel out. And being able to utilize that secondary road has meant that we've been able to get the fuel out. It's just that road, at the capacity that it's at now, you can't get the fuel out quick enough through the main route. So they are still using the other routes to get out. But fuel supply as a whole, right now, I don't believe that is a huge risk to the network.
So what is your plea to officials that are working on particularly the outbound carriageway, which was supposed to at least assist? What is your plea as an industry?
I think certainly as an industry, we really need to get Bayhead open. And obviously, everyone is working around the clock to try and get these roads resolved. We've got huge amount of roads that are obviously damaged. Many of the main highways have got major issues. So unfortunately, that leads to the lack of fuel sales as well, because those roads are not fully operational. But I think our plea is going to be, let's try and get these roads sorted as soon as possible so that obviously motorists can get back to normal course of work on the roads, and that we can get trucks to these main roads or the main service stations that are needing that fuel.